Good afternoon or good evening, depending on where you are. My name is Eugenie Shu, and I am on the board of the Raymond A. Wood Foundation, and I want to welcome you all to our second second talk on supportive housing. With us today, we have two speakers from two different housing communities. One is Susan Riggle, who is from Living Unlimited, and we also have with us Mark Roth from Luna Azul in Arizona, or ECC. I'm sorry, what does ECC stand for, Mark?
Emma's Community Cottages. That's my daughter, Emma.
Oh, okay. All right. So you shorten it to ECC. Okay, but
the project is called Luna Azul, correct?
The project is called Luna Azul. Wonderful. Okay, so I'm going to just do a brief introduction of both Susan and Mark. And then we're going to do this more like a question and answer. So I'll be asking questions of them both, and then they will answer them back and forth. And then you'll all have a chance to ask your own questions at the very end when they're done with their presentation. All right. So first of all, let me introduce Mark Roth first. So we got Mark's name from Teresa Strong, who is with an organization with Prader-Willi. And there's a lot of overlap between Prader-Willi syndrome and craniopharyngioma and some of the other hypothalamic pituitary brain tumors. And so I think of Prader-Willi as sort of craniopharyngioma's phenotypic cousin. So because of the connection between Prader-Willi and craniopharyngioma, we thought it would be interesting to invite Mark to speak with us. So let me just read a little bio on Mark. So Mark Roth is the father of a young woman now in her 20s with a developmental disability. Unsatisfied with existing living conditions or living options for her, Mark developed Luna Azul in Phoenix. The website is www.lunaphx.com. This is a 4.5-acre, 30-home gated neighborhood, which offers homes for sale rather than for rent, and it gives families greater control and peace of mind about the permanence and the future cost of the housing they've chosen. With the help of the HOA staff and input from neighbors, homeowners themselves decide who provides services and who lives in and visits their homes. So that's Mark. And next I'm going to introduce Susan. Susan Riggle, I met through a mutual friend whose name is Fiona Wong. Fiona and I live in the same town. And I knew that Fiona was involved in starting up a project called the Mustang Court Commons, which is in north of San Francisco. So Fiona introduced me to Susan. So here's Susan's bio. Susan helped found Living Unlimited, or we'll call it LU. LU was created to work on solving the problem of where her son and others like him will end up once the parents are gone. She realized that this is not just a dilemma for her family, it is also a challenge for others too. Susan had a perfect storm of skills that could help with this obsession of making certain her son has housing. Susan worked for years for the government, both federal on contract and the state, and she knows how the government works or doesn't, and just how slow it is when it does work. Susan's government work was in public health data with programming and analysis. Let's just say she knows how to obsess about little things. Susan also fell in love with real estate upon the purchase of her first home in her 20s, many, many years ago. She loved it so much, she got a license and has spent many more hours combing and analyzing the data of the MLSs than watching movies or even reading. So when it became clear that housing for her special son was pretty non-existent, she and a wonderful band of fellow LU board members came up with some ideas on how to get this special population long-term, safe, and secure housing. This is primarily accomplished by banding families together, pooling resources, sharing knowledge and expertise, and utilizing the provisions that those before us fought for. Doing this so that your child will be safe and secure after you are gone is more than comforting. It is empowering and provides an amazing sense of relief. just takes a boatload of work. So we're going to learn about the boatload of work that Mark and Susan have done, I'm sure. So welcome to the two of you. As I said, I'm going to be asking you some questions, and if you could just take turns answering them, that would be awesome. Okay, so my first question is if you could each take a turn and describe the history, model, and philosophy of the project and your vision of how it will support the residents with special needs. Whoever wants to go first can take that.
I'll let Mark go first.
Okay. Thank you, Susan. The history and the model and the philosophy. And it sort of blends into your question number two, what inspired me to do this. And really it was my wife's dare. Because I kept objecting to, as I was coming to understand the living options for my daughter as an adult, I was unsatisfied with those. And my wife said, if you're so smart, why don't you create something else? And the history of this, I learned about supported housing, and I knew I wanted to own the property that my daughter was going to live in, so I could control not just costs, but roommates, visitors, who the caregivers are going to be. If I didn't like the caregivers, I could replace them rather than my daughter having to move out. Right. But I always knew that if my daughter was, if I just bought a condo, for example, surrounded by typically developed folks, that my daughter was not going to get invited to the pool party. And so I was looking for and couldn't find a solution where I had ownership, but in a community of like-minded folks where disability was common and it was expected to be seen, and there was people sympathetic to that or sharing our burden and our troubles and our joys and our notes and our feedback. It didn't exist, so I created it.
Nice. Nice. Susan, would you like to answer the question of if you could describe?
I was in the same boat as Mark. I mean, I started calling around when my son was about 8 to 10 years old and calling the Social Security office, calling DDS saying, so what happens when I'm gone? And they'd say things like, oh, he'll go and live with a relative. And I'm thinking, oh, he's got a twin sister. Great. He's going to live in her basement the rest of her life. There goes her life. I couldn't see it that way. So I went to a conference called Farms and Ranches Enabling the Disabled. And I was certain that it was only going to be me and the presenters. But there were like 400 people there. And there I met amazing people that were doing terrific work. Like Sunflower Hill was just getting started, and Costanoa Commons, which is now Coastal Haven, and Common Roots Farm down in Santa Cruz. And I met Alex Krem, who my son was about to go to his camp for the first time for Camp Krem. And he and I started talking, and he and I started a collaboration. And about a year later, we had a nonprofit established by the name of Living Unlimited.
And what year was that?
That was 2015.
Okay.
So about 7 years ago now.
Okay.
And the whole philosophy of that is that you build community, you work together. And Living Unlimited is there to try to foster the building of the community, getting families set up to get to know each other, buy properties, establish homes for their children. And then here in California, the regional center provides the services. And like Mark said, it's nice in that you don't lose your child's home if the services don't work out. The services go bye-bye. The service provider goes bye-bye. And your child gets to stay at their home. And, you know, so my son did end up going to camp. And the first time he came back, he was a different person. And I knew I was on the right path with building community. He wanted to be around people like him and people who cared about people like him. So that's where we came from as far as banding together.
Great. I forgot to ask you both, maybe you could say a little bit about the nature, just generally the nature of your children's disabilities, or I think you both said that they're developmentally disabled. Is that correct? Just so we have a sense of what their needs are. Could you say a little bit about that?
I can. Do you
Go
want me to
for it.
go?
You go,
Okay.
Susan.
My guy, he is a big guy. He's
How old is he?
20,
20. Okay.
20 years old, and he is significantly impaired in that it's hard for him to communicate. He has very little language. Words like noodle means food. That's about it. Um, he he it's hard to know where he is intellectually, because sometimes he surprises me. He comes with tremendous workarounds. But he essentially could be, a very large man in a very large toddler in a man's body. That's
Okay.
what it feels like at times.
Okay. And he requires how much care? Like, does he require someone to sort of be with him all the time, or in the
Pretty much.
context of the housing, it's helpful for us
Yes,
to know this.
yes, he does. He requires 24/7 care. I'm trying to, we try to leave the room occasionally and hope to God the microwave doesn't end up burning out again.
Okay.
But that's the kind of care,
Got it.
Or,
Okay.
or you turn off the washing machine and you make it so it doesn't get, easily pushed and turn on while you're not looking.
Okay.
That kind
So
of
he
thing.
needs a lot of supervision. Got it. Okay. Thank you. And Mark, could you comment on that just in the context of the housing so we understand?
Sure. Unlike Susan, my daughter communicates, and the trick is getting her to stop sometimes. So she, and I don't, I know there's some people don't like these wording, high functioning, low functioning, but if there is a spectrum, my daughter's probably at the higher end of it. But so she bathes herself, she dresses herself, she can cook in a microwave and not blow it up. And but she must have prompting. So she will not herself remember to take a shower, or she might get up at 4 a.m. and somebody has to say it's not time to get up yet. Or and I've been trying to teach her lately that light switches turn lights off as well as turn lights on, for example. So she needs some prompting and some education. And she could never balance a checkbook or anything like that, or be in charge of money and stuff. But we're really hoping that here we can explore just how much independence she's capable of, what is suitable for her.
Mhm.
And we'll have the care that comes in, and we'll do experiments. And perhaps over time, even over many years, she may gain even more independence. That's our hope.
Mhm. All right, great.
Great.
Another question I have, which I don't know if I had it specifically in my question, so sorry to throw you a slight curveball, but it would be helpful for us to envision your communities if you could describe the physical layout of it a little bit. And I don't mean like, number of buildings or floors, but more like, is it independent homes with common dining room? Is it a bunch of houses surrounding a common patio? Like what does a physical layout look like so we can understand the community aspect of it?
You want me to go first?
Go
Yeah.
ahead.
Okay, 30 homes around a clubhouse. And what's really interesting is called a pocket neighborhood. So there's this famous architect outside of Seattle that I read about and contacted about this. And the idea is none of the homes have garages. These are separate homes, full kitchens, laundry room, bathrooms, and two and 1 story models, 2-bedroom and 3-bedroom models. And none of the homes have garages, and they all have big front porches, and they're all built facing each other, surrounding a common green space. And so there's 2 courtyards. There's 14 homes on one and 16 homes in the other. And there's a 2,500 square foot clubhouse in the middle with a pool and outdoor patio, really beautiful. It's like a resort. It's very, very beautiful. The design exceeded my expectations.
Nice.
So that's the layout, and it's about 4.5 acres.
Wow, that's quite a bit of land. Mhm.
That's
Nice.
great.
And how
Can
many
we
people
move
live
in?
there, Mark? How many residents does that space?
So 25 of the 30, so 30 homes, there's 30 lots. 25 have been built and certificates of occupancy. And I'd say of those 25, probably about 18 or 19 are occupied.
Mhm.
And in some of them, mom lives there. Here, I'm speaking to you from Luna Azul. I live with my daughter. My wife is still in Seattle at our home there, and I have another daughter in college there. But my wife said she got the first 22 years, I get the next 22 years. And so I'm living down here, helping with this transition and get us plugged into the Arizona system and get vendors to come in and design an ISP instead of an IEP and figure out a routine. And then I'll spend a night away or 3 nights away and then a week away. And then, and hopefully she'll have a routine and she goes to the clubhouse every night. Am I blathering or am
No,
I
no, you're
answering your
fine.
question?
But I think we understand the layout. It's a very
Okay.
sort of a separate homes, but very much a community aspect
Right,
with
right.
clubhouse. Got it.
And it's gated. It's gated. And there's a
Gated.
wall.
Okay, so that provides security. All right. And your plan is to eventually sort of wean yourself away from Luna Azul, and she'll be there without you.
Correct. I mean, we'll always visit, but yes, the idea is, because just like Susan said, the idea of her becoming a burden on her sister as an adult was not okay with us.
Right.
And
Right.
so having her have her own place with supports coming in a neighborhood of like-minded folks is what we wanted.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
And that's
Susan, how
what-
about you? Can you
That's what
describe
we were aiming for.
if you could describe the physical layout too, that'd be great.
Okay, well, we have 2 projects up and running right now. We have the project up in Cloverdale, which is by the name of Clearwater Ranch. And it has, it has a whole set of buildings already on the property and a community center. We call that the Enhancement Center. It has a swimming pool. It's on 84 acres. So far, they've got 1 household set up. We were trying to do it 1 house a year. And we were going to have 6 houses total. And in each house, there's 6 bedrooms. Well, in the first 3 houses, there's 6 bedrooms. And there's 4 residents who have disabilities. And then there's 2 bedrooms for home companions. And that was a concept that, I'll be honest, we lifted straight out of Anna Wang, who's down here in Fremont, who does Friends of Children with Special Needs. And she has her home set up that way. She's another one you should probably talk to.
You've
right
introduced
there.
me. Yeah.
Oh, that's right. I did.
Yeah.
Okay, so so the whole hope is that you have a combination of disabled and non-disabled people living together. It's a boost to people who we try to charge rents that are reasonable, which in California means a big deal. So our rents are affordable by somebody who's living on SSI.
Wow.
And so if you have 4 residents living in the house and they're on SSI, the rents are around $750, $800, around there. And the 2 other bedrooms we rent out for about the same price. So that's nice for people who are wanting to live with this population. They get reasonable rent. We did have a computer programmer living with our group last year. He was amazing. He got along fine with the guys, and they seemed to like the same things, Lego and sci-fi movies. So they did fine. And we did have a care provider living in the home also, but he actually only lived there and he worked elsewhere doing any care provision.
Mhm.
So the whole hope is that we kind of give the typical people an opportunity to have reasonable rent, and they can actually cut down their costs by possibly being the overnight care provider a couple of nights a week, or maybe a couple of nights a month, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
Kind of a washing each other's hands,
Mhm.
trying to help each
Nice.
other.
Okay, thank you. That brings me to the next question, which is how and what kinds of support are provided to the residents? So as you mentioned, Susan, your son needs quite a bit of support. Mark, your daughter doesn't need quite as much, but some support. So I'm wondering, are there sort of built-in emotional, physical safety, social support systems in, or is this something that all the families are having to provide on their own through their own vendors? If you could just address that.
You want to go first? Susan?
Sure.
All right.
We're running off of SLS. Supported living services are the service providers that are brought in.
Now, is
to
that
our-
private or public?
It's private. Our particular service provider that we've been using in Clearwater Ranch and the one we plan to use at Mustang Court, which is the farm behind me, they are established for 60 years. They've been working out of Marin, and they're now working in Sonoma County. And so far, they've been really, really amazing. It's hard for them to find care providers, but they pay more than the average organization, so they are able to, if there are care providers out there, they're able to snag them because they pay more than most of the other groups.
So
So,
the families there then hire the care providers and pay out of pocket.
Yes,
is
the
correct?
individual resident has a, what is it called? IPP?
ISP, Individualized Support Plan.
Something like that, yeah. And so we have that all set up and established, and the regional center takes care of paying for those services, and those services are brought in. And then in our organization, we have layers of kind of oversight. We tried to build in the home companions that could say, something doesn't look right or something along those lines. And then over that, we also have what we call a community manager.
And is that
So-
somebody that is hired by your organization?
Yeah, that's somebody hired by Living Unlimited, but paid for out of the rents for
Okay.
the residents, by the residents.
Do they live there on site, or are they kind of coming in more or less as a visitor?
The plan is to have them live on site.
So there will be somebody living on site. That's kind of what I wanted to get at. It's
Yeah.
like, are there people living on site to help with the residents?
Yeah, that's the plan.
Okay, that's your plan. All right, thanks. How about you, Mark?
Susan, it's so interesting listening to you because we have so much of the same things, but a totally different approach to getting there. So in Arizona, they call it, instead of the SSL or supported living, the state calls it IDLAs, individually designed living arrangement. And so, instead of my daughter living in a group home, just handing her over to the care of the state, I say to the state, I would like my home to be an IDLA. And so state, will you please pay for vendors to come in, qualified vendors, they're called in Arizona, to come in and provide the services that she needs in accordance with her, here they call it an ISP, individualized support plan. Like in school, we saw IEPs, ISPs now. But I've distinguished between in the home care and outside the home care. So in the home care and each of our homes, now one of our homes, two families bought it together, and two boys live there with Down syndrome, and they share the vendor comes and our other homes it's like one kid, and perhaps a lot of moms live here, one dad. And some people need 24/7, care, and some people don't. And so there's caregivers coming and going from these vendors frequently. But we have HOA staff that is here in the clubhouse or out and about 24/7. And so that's what I call outside the home care. So, and just what you said, Susan, it's like, they're sort of my spy too. So if my caregiver is chronically late, or if they're on the phone all the time and the HOA staff sees that, it's not their job to fix it, it's their job to let me know.
Exactly.
And so listening to your model, it sounds like we're trying to get to the same place,
Yeah.
but I went at it at a different way.
Yeah, but brilliant minds. We're good. Just kidding.
My
Can I
next
dial in my wife and you say that again? I'm sorry.
question-
Sorry. Okay. Go
Um,
ahead.
I'm going to switch gears a little bit just for this next question, which is more about finances. So one question is how is this project being financially supported? Is this something that the families that are involved here banding together to buy these properties or to invest in the community, in the land? And then the part B to that question is what is the cost of being a resident? Is it something like, do you buy in? Do you pay rent? How does that work? And you alluded a little bit to your situation, Susan, with the SSI, the low rents. Yeah. Can you speak to the ownership
Sure.
piece of it?
Okay, we have what is called an equity model where the families do band together and they purchase a property. And it's not cheap in California.
Nope.
It's very, very expensive. I mean, our latest, I think the latest price in Cloverdale is about $475. And that is for a room. The resident gets a
So
room.
with each, so just to be clear, so each family puts in $475,000 to have a part of a house.
That's right.
Okay.
It's not each family. It's theirs was a sliding. It was a scale that went up every time they'd sell a membership. The price would go up. It was an encouraging method, and we've
Okay.
kind of done that also at Mustang Court, which is the project that we have going in Petaluma, which is on 5.5 acres, where we have a main house and scattered homes.
Mhm.
But we make it so that the families buy in, and essentially you then have, you don't have a mortgage because you pay cash. And the money that comes in every month from SSI payments, which are around 800, goes to cover taxes, insurance, some upkeep, and a little bit of it gets skimmed off to help pay for the community manager.
Got it. Okay. All right. Thank you.
That's the way that works.
Yeah. How about with yours, Mark? How are the finances handled?
We're very expensive, but we're a bargain compared to California. So
It's good that Susan went first, right?
yeah. Yeah, I thought we were very expensive. The market has moved in our direction because the cost of homes now is just skyrocketing, and the cost of construction, which is why I have 5 lots still to build. The cost to build those homes have just gone up 50%.
Yeah.
But in any event, so our homes are just for sale. You can get a mortgage, you can pay it off, or you pay cash, or you can pay it. It's just
It's like buying a
buy a
house.
home.
Okay.
And then you decide who lives there in that whole home. That's your home.
Uh-huh.
Some people, and I've said there's moms and one dad, another woman that lives here that has cerebral palsy, has a young master's student. She's getting her master's degree at Arizona State University, lives upstairs
Mhm.
and provides very light services for her and drives her sometimes. So there's all of that. And then, however, once you buy the home, there's HOA dues, and that covers that staff. Really, when they're expensive, it's like $1,100 a month for that HOA due. But that covers the, really why that is as expensive as it is because it's the staffing and somebody here 24/7. But there's activities that my daughter, for instance, she doesn't want to hang out with me. She goes to the clubhouse every night. And, there's game night one night a week, and, reading night or movie night or whatever, and just walks over there and walks back. So that's the costs essentially. And the cost of our homes there's 1 2-bedroom left of the ones that are built. And there's about 4 3-bedrooms left. That 2-bedroom is probably about $450. And the 3 bedrooms are probably around $530, $540, somewhere around there.
Well, for $450, you could buy a garage in California.
Right. That's what I hear.
You're lucky.
But we don't have a beach. So
Yeah. All right. That actually is a good transition to my next question, which has to do with kind of what are the residents getting in terms of activities, vocational opportunities, support, social support, all that kind of stuff. So what are the things that, because obviously both of you are offering not just, a roof over their heads, but you're offering a community, right? It's a community with other people who are similar to them. It's also a community with caregivers, with other residents. But curious about what do you see as being offered to the residents there?
Do you want to go, Mark, or do you want me to
Sure.
go?
Because I could be very smug and just say, hey, we don't offer anything because and we don't, but we have staff that is itching to, do what the residents and the parents want. And we have residents that are asking for certain things. So what happens is what the owners and the residents, the people with disabilities and their caregivers and their families want to see happen. About once a month, we have a party where parents come too, and we have cocktails outside, and we all know each other, and we all know their kid or each other's children and what's going on. And we text, we have a group text, and we know everybody's phone numbers. So I think what we're really offering is peace of mind. We're offering safety. It's not a lockdown, it's not an institution. Anybody could walk out anytime, but I have an overnight staff that's, if somebody walks out in the middle of the night, they're going to get a tone and they're going to know it, and they're going to follow up, and they're going to ask questions, and they're going to notify me. And I have staff that I could call if I'm in Mexico with my wife and my daughter is texting me, she thinks somebody's in the backyard. There's overnight staff that can go and look in the backyard and maybe talk to Emma and calm her down. Mm-hmm. So really what we have is peace of mind for the parents. And we have, as far as we don't have a vocational program. We don't have a work site. We don't have anything like that. My kid goes to day services and comes back in the evenings. And so smugly, I'd say we don't offer any official programs, but what we do is have a community of people that want to help one another.
Nice.
That's good.
Thank you.
So we also are very similar to Mark again, but we do try to do enhancements. We, our community manager will be providing for parties and such as up at Clearwater Ranch, they have what is called an enhancement center where they have exercise equipment and a little corner for watching movies and a stage. And so they have opportunities to engage with each other and to engage with the staffing that is being provided by the regional center. And then our kids also, when COVID kind of calms down, we're supposed to be able to get them back into a day program. That's where they'll be spending the lion's share of their day, is in a day program. But then when they get home, they'll have their helpers, their service providers. And in our situation there at Mustang Court, we have a farm that doesn't look like a farm yet. If you look behind me, it's going to be a farm someday, and we'll have the opportunity for raised bed gardens. There'll be a barn out there. We have lots of plans for our
potential.
Pardon?
You have potential.
Yes, we've got a lot of potential.
Nice. All right. Thank you. What I want to ask you next is if you could describe the range of special needs of your residents. You've already answered the question of who's on I think you answered the question of who is there on staff. In Mark's case, there's the HOA person, and then there are the residents' own personal caregivers, right? I'm not sure if I know the answers in your case, Susan. Also, I know there's going to be questions from our community about medical conditions and how if medical conditions, if there are people there who live there with medical conditions who are medically fragile or who need medications, if that's handled any differently, or if that's just also handled by their own personal caregivers.
I'll go ahead and
Go.
start. Okay. We do have people with conditions that require medical personnel or people to be there. And those are, again, brought in. They're not provided by us because of the separation of housing from services. And so we have people, quite a few of our residents have epilepsy. And so they get their care, and they fit into households where it's not going to be like a whole household full of people that have epilepsy, but more along the lines of people with less needs and their needs. I do have, we're still very, very new. We only have 4 residents getting started in Cloverdale, and I think next month we've got another 4 coming on. So that's 8. I mean, that's not very many residents yet. And our project in Mustang Court probably won't be capable of being up and running for at least another year. So we're still behind that. But we do have individuals who have pretty significant needs that they'll have to have staffing of nursing staffing that will help care for them.
Mm-hmm. So
And
again, the families will provide the caregivers for
the families can go ahead and choose the caregivers. The regional center provides the caregivers.
Oh, the regional center provides it.
Yeah,
Okay.
the regional center provides all the caregivers.
Even the medical caregivers.
Yes, even the regional center provides all the caregivers, and they kind of coordinate the medical caregivers. I'm sure the medical caregivers don't come through the regional center's money program, but they help coordinate.
Medicaid.
They
Yeah, it's probably Medicaid.
I
Yeah.
see. So that even nurses can be hired through that way.
Yes.
That means, okay,
Yeah.
thank you. And the range of residents is broad,
It is. It's very, very broad.
different
Yeah.
diagnoses and
Mhm.
different issues. Okay. And Mark?
So same here, we have profoundly disabled people, and we have, barely disabled people. We have all ages. I think the youngest is maybe about 19. We have some people that are not ambulatory and don't speak, and they haven't moved in yet. But we have other families too that are looking to buy. And just like this family with the kid who's non-ambulatory, they're renting out the house right now until they're ready to move their kid in. And because they just wanted to get it and have this solution when they're ready. And as far as meds go, my daughter has, cocktail medications in the morning, at night, and I give them to her. And when I'm gone, I would anticipate exactly what Susan was saying, that in Arizona, they're called qualified vendors. And like I said, my daughter needs prompting and reminding, oh, you have to take, your medicine before you go to bed. And, but just, the vendor's not responsible for prescribing or gathering those, but, we have pills in the house, and she's supposed to get this, each night. And so I would anticipate the vendor that we hire will be assisting in that.
Okay. There's a follow-up question, I think, when we started to talk about regional center, which is what is required, if maybe this is getting too much into the weeds, if it's too complicated, let me know, but what is required to qualify for regional center caregivers? Do you have to just be a regional center client? Is that it?
Yep, it has to be something that they interview you. If you become a client, then you have to require those services. They will, it's not like you get services if you don't need them. They're pretty tight on it.
It's a state by state analysis.
Yeah.
And so Arizona's DES, all these D initial government, but the Department of Economic Security here in Arizona, it's statutorily, there's diagnoses, and you have to have one of these diagnoses, and you have to be missing 4 of these 7 life skills. And
Yes.
if you qualify, then, by the way, there's no waiting list in Arizona, and you're just in the system, and they start paying. And the way they pay is they pay vendors. So I believe in California, the way that they pay is through this regional center or whatever that does
Right.
it.
And now there's a different way of receiving services, which is, remember the name, self-determination, where it's essentially they've taken out the middleman of the regional center, and they give you the pot of money, and you work with somebody to get your kid the services that you think he needs.
Yeah, it's probably different state by state, but my understanding is that the basic requirement to qualify for regional center services is that you have to have a disability that is developmental. So it has to be acquired or inborn before the age of 18.
Right.
And then you have to meet certain criteria, like check the 7 boxes, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah.
It is similar here, but there just might be different language.
Yeah. Okay. And Mark, you did allude to this next question I'm going to ask, which is a sensitive question. It's just something that we have to face, right? Which is, how is the care of the residents managed after the primary caregiver passes away? And I'm assuming all of you are doing this because we all know we're not going to live forever, right? So how do you envision? What? Sorry to break it to you. Right. So how does it work after you're no longer here to look over your children's needs?
Can I go first, Susan?
Yeah.
The short answer is, and again, at the risk of sounding glib, I don't know. I don't know exactly what's going to happen. But the genesis of this project, so much of it was that fear that you're talking about right now that we all share. What happens after I'm gone and I can't provide? And I didn't want somebody working at the state to decide where my daughter was going to live and who was going to take care of her and what she needed. I wanted to try and leave something for her. And so now, how will it operate, and who will watch the vendors or replace the vendors, or, spot changes in Emma over 10 or 40 years? The best I could do, I thought, was what Susan and I are both trying to do, is create what I call the spy, and somebody that maybe just cares about my kid. No one's going to care about my kid like me or my wife. And so can I create a community where people are just going to get to know her and just care a little bit, as opposed to a condominium surrounded by typically developed folks who are moving in and out and don't know her and don't care to know her and don't know how to reach me even if they wanted to. And so it sounds nirvanic, but I'm not trying to create a nirvana, and I'm not, and I'm not pretending that I have all the answers to the question that you're asking right now. How is it going to work when I'm gone? I don't know. But I wanted to try and influence the odds.
I think the way you're answering it makes me say that what you're trying to create is a village.
Correct.
To create a village that will, it's more than just, an individual or 2 or 3 or 4. It's the gestalt of a community.
You're exactly correct. And I have used the word village. It's exactly correct what I'm trying to create, or what I have created.
Sense. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. All right. Thank you, Mark. How about you, Susan?
What was the question? No, I'm just kidding.
I'm sorry. I talked too much. I'm sorry.
Well, when we first started gathering families to talk about this, we called it Let's Buy the Farm, because I'm from the Midwest, and the whole joke is, when you die, you buy the farm. So our whole tagline was, if we don't buy the farm, we can never buy the farm. We've got to come up with an idea and a plan that's going to outlive us. And so the plan for Living Unlimited, which is the nonprofit, that's the overarching umbrella organization, is that they take a little bit of money every month off of what little bit of services they're providing as far as management of the LLC and pulling together parties for people to get involved, and we do a little bit of organizing for, especially now before having a community manager, if things need to be rented out, we're the ones that are doing the renting out, that kind of thing. The whole objective here is to make it so that Living Unlimited outlasts me and lives a lot longer than my son, hopefully, so that it's the oversight mechanism and it keeps everything going. It makes certain that the community managers of all of our separate communities are doing their job. And it makes certain that the home companions are, doing their job, whatever that job might be for them. So that's our objective. So the whole philosophy was, we got to try to figure out a way to make it so that it outlives us. Now, have we been able to do it? No. It's still a very volunteer organization, but now we're working with other agencies who are telling us, well, maybe we could help you here and maybe we can help you there. And we have some philanthropic organizations that are willing to work with us on this. So that's really great. That's where we're at.
I get the sense that both of you are talking about a model of living that we tend not to have in the United States. We tend to be very individualistic here. We don't live communally like people do in many, many other countries and cultures. And it sounds like you're trying to create something that's much bigger and broader than sort of the typical, housing, with just the unit of the family, the mom, dad, and sister and brother, just a bigger, more inclusive place, because, you need all those people to care for your kids. So that's really nice.
I would add, I just want to add to that. It was very deliberate in our physical design as well. And just what you're saying, this pocket neighborhood concept, which, are popping up, especially in California. There's some in Washington and in Indiana, even. I'm aware this architect is doing it. Because everybody has built for privacy and separation. And in my neighborhood in Seattle, I recognize my neighbors. The ones in the cul-de-sac, I know their names. On the street, I recognize them. I don't know their names. I have almost nothing. I don't know anything about them. In a pocket neighborhood where everybody sees each other coming and going. And that's why no garages is very deliberate. You have to walk in and walk out. And that's why there's big porches and stuff. It's physically intended to foster that neighborly interaction. That is not present in the United States right now by any means. I think I agree with everything you just said about that. And that's in part why we chose this physical design.
Yeah, it's very nice. It is definitely very communal. Yeah, community based. There were maybe a couple more questions from people in the audience. One that wasn't not sure if we addressed it was, how were these projects funded at the outset? I think you may have said that family.
Yeah, I want to hear this, Mark.
Did you see my picture that was circulated? And I didn't have the bags under the eyes and stuff. So that picture was taken when I was just getting going on this. Okay, so this was funded with, I'm a recovering attorney, and so I was a securities attorney for many years. And so I was able to do all the offering documents and stuff like that. But then getting people to invest, the underlying equity was very, very hard to raise. And then I had to go out and get traditional debt on top of it. And I found out lenders don't much like hearing never been done before. And they want personal guarantees. which has proven to be an extraordinary stress on my wife and I. So we deliberately did not want government input because it always came with strings. And so we set out to do this in a for-profit way. There will be no profit, but there will be just total ownership, and the vision is here. I mean, it happened, but it was very difficult, and this was funded traditionally, and it was very, very, very difficult to pull off.
So Mark, you and your wife are the originators of this. Like, you bought the property with your own, with a loan you took out yourself?
No, and we're not, what we are is we're the victims of this anyway. No, so I created an LLC, a company, and people invested money into it.
Oh, okay.
And then it went out and bought the land.
Got it.
And then and spent some money on architects and zoning and all that stuff. And then we went out and got debt on top of that.
You created the LLC. You had to collect the people together. That's what made your hair go gray. I see. Right. Okay. Got it. All right. And Susan, was it the same for you? Did you have
very
to
similar
families?
Our families band together and we create an LLC. But in some of these cases, we go ahead and just say, just give us the cash. And a lot of people just take out seconds on their homes. And that way we have cash to work with, particularly for like Mustang Court Commons, which needs a lot of work, you know. And we had an angel investor. That family started us out, but now we still have to do the work to make it livable. We did make it so that some of the homes that are bought up in the neighborhoods, because we have different concepts, this Mustang Court Commons has the clustered home philosophy, whereas on the other side of that field behind me, there's a group of, there's a development of what I call McMansions, but affordable McMansions. And families have banded together and we've helped them create an LLC. And then we take it to the bank and they take out a loan. And they now are paying, you know, the rents that are coming in. Currently, we've got one house that's doing this. The rents that are coming in are going into savings and paying off that loan.
Okay.
And when the time comes and their kids live there, they'll continue to pay on that loan. But the component that we need for our oversight, which is for the community manager, the families are going to have to pay out of pocket about $300 to $350 a month.
All right. I'm just noticing we are running out of time. So we're getting to the last 7 minutes. There's a couple more questions I want to ask. And if they take too much time, we can maybe ask you later. This is a question also about funding. Are you aware of any other funding mechanisms for supportive housing? Has anyone ever done it with government supported funding? And if you know of something, you can refer us to it later or whatever. Or
I do. I mean, there are lots of government funded supporting housing, but once you start doing that, you lose your opportunity of making certain your child has a home. I mean, that's how Sunflower Hill worked it. They made it so that it had to be a lottery system. And because they took government funding and they worked within those systems. I'm working. Pardon?
You lose your freedom to design it the way you want it. You have to kind of stand in line and
you may not get a place for your kid, and I just couldn't risk that. I am working with a philanthropic organization, and they're talking about going ahead and buying the properties and them being the bank. And since they're a philanthropic organization, rather than us having to pay property taxes because they're a nonprofit, they can go ahead and take that money, and it gives them, you know, a 3.5% to 4% return on their investment. So that's really helpful. And that makes it so our families can come in and they don't have to put down $400,000. They may put down a nominal fee or a subscription fee. It's not guaranteed because they don't buy the house like Mark and my families do currently, but they do, you know, they get a child, you know, get their child a house to live in, and
Okay.
hopefully it all works.
I'm just aware of time, and I do want to ask about whether there are vacancies at your respective places, and can people take tours? We actually have one member who's watching who lives in Tucson and is interested in your place, Mark. So are there vacancies, and can people take a tour?
We do have remaining homes for sale. Of course, if you go just onto the website, you'll go straight to the real estate broker. If anybody wants to reach out to me directly, you know, I bet you can get my contact information from the foundation, and I'd happy to show you around myself. And I can get you a deal. So they're going fast.
I'm coming to Phoenix next month. I'll call
Are
you.
you really?
Yes, I want to come see your
Okay,
setup.
great.
It's
Oh,
wonderful.
nice. How about you, Susan? It sounds like Mustang Court is still in development.
Yes, it is. We do have one house in the cluster. We've got the main house already sold out. We've got the hopeful ADU. We've got to pass our dry weather well test. But the ADU it's all sold out. We have quite a few homes behind me that come up on the market, and I try to band families together. We're having a party this weekend, and we'll get families introduced to each other. And when a house comes up, they can all start talking and decide whether or not it's, you know, something they want to jump on.
Okay. And now we only have a few minutes left, so you're gonna have to talk fast. So the last question is, if there's a family here that wants to start something kind of like you guys did, do you have any like elevator speech, do's and don'ts? And I know what you're gonna say, Mark. But is there any like real like something that you really learned that is like absolutely you must do this and do not do this?
You just go, Susan.
And together.
I'm old and tired and bitter.
Yeah, I know, so am I.
But at least you got your place done, Mark.
Yes,
Right.
that's good. Yeah. Learn from those who have gone before you. And, you know, one of the whole things about us setting this up as a nonprofit was we didn't want to have all this knowledge be completely wasted, you know, because it's one and done and people just close down shop. I didn't want that. Find people like us, learn all you can. You don't have to do it exactly like us, but take our knowledge.
Yeah, though don't reinvent the wheel.
Don't reinvent the wheel. Okay. That's right.
Good. And we have 2 more minutes. And I'm just going to warn everybody that when 5:30 hits or 8:30, wherever you are, the Zoom call will just close and it'll feel like someone's hanging up on the phone on you. So we don't mean to be rude. That's just what happens. So we have like 2 more minutes. Do you have any words of wisdom, Mark?
No, I think Susan just did great. I'm not sure I would do this again. This isn't, and I'm just listening to Susan and all that you're doing. And this is not a part-time job, folks. This is building a development or like either one of us. This is, and by the way, if you have a benefactor, if you're related to Bill Gates or something like this, it'll get done, you know, but money's always the problem.
Find a Bill Gates. Is that your advice? Find a Bill Gates to help you
right
out?
If you have a benefactor, this gets a lot easier.
And I just want to say the conference call, this Zoom call will not close for the audience members. I misunderstood. It's just us, just the 4 of us.
So I get the hook.
You can talk about us now.
All right.
Oh, God.
Well, thank you so much for presenting to us. This was really interesting and really appreciate your spending the time and giving us all this great information. And